Hello everyone, welcome to another video here on the channel. So let's talk Final Fantasy 16. Final Fantasy 16 is one of the biggest games to come out this year. It's one of Square Enix's biggest franchises, and it's been getting a lot of positive reviews from critics. Now the game, I believe, is public now and has been rated highly by people who played the demo. I'm very excited for it. I have been a Final Fantasy fan since I played Final Fantasy 7, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. But regardless, not every review praised the game, and we're going to discuss one of them right away. Now, I am a game journalist. I've been doing it ever since I was 16, and whenever I review a game, I always try to review it for what it is, not, politics involved in the game's development and stuff like that, because it can become very messy at times when you're dealing with stuff like that. I can understand why people didn't want to review Hogwarts Legacy, even though the game is terrific and had nothing to do with J.K. Rowling. I understood why some people just didn't want to touch it, so. But in that regard, I still think that games should be taken for what they are and how they are developed in the sense of how they play. Like, if they play well, they should be given a good score. If they didn't play well, they should be given a bad score. So when it came to this review, and I read it several times, it came from Eurogamer. It kind of, it just made me a little annoyed because in a lot of ways it just speaks ill of the Final Fantasy 16 developers, and in a lot of ways paints them in an image that just is it's not flattering. And it insinuates and polices them in a way stating that you have to make the game this way, and if you don't, you're bad people. That's the way it comes off as, and you'll see what I mean when we read through this paragraph. Now, again, this is from Eurogamer, and we're going to read this paragraph in particular that I still don't understand what they were thinking when they wrote this, because it rings really similarly to the Kotaku PlayStation 5 review. So let's read through it. The world is also conspicuous for its ethnic homogeneity, which producer Nako Yoshida has explained as a reflection of the geographical, technological, and geopolitical constraints of medieval Europe. Leaving aside the fact that there were black and brown people in medieval Europe, this justification rings hollow given the several locations take open inspiration from North Africa and Middle East, with the towns that, for example, riff on Islamic architecture traditions and attire, but are predominantly or exclusively populated by Anglophone white people. I hedge here simply because I haven't been around and talked to everyone. I find the deletion of people of color from these spaces more sinister than racial stereotypes of older Final Fantasies, particularly in a game that talks about overcoming structural injustice and bringing people together. That togetherness is worth fighting for, but it's characterized by what it excludes. Now, the article he's referring to when he talks about geographical, technological, and geopolitical constraints is this one from Kotaku, which reads, Final Fantasy XIV dev has a terrible answer for why the game is so wide, which, yeah, you can already read between the lines of what this writer is conveying. So it states this. Yoshida explained that Fantasy World of Valisthea was based on medieval Europe, and they wanted to limit the world culturally and geographically. Valisthea was never going to be realistically be as diverse as, say, modern-day Earth or even Final Fantasy XIV, he said, as he was being asked to incorporate every race on the planet. Ultimately, we felt that while incorporating ethnic diversity in Valisthea was important, an over-incorporation of a single corner of a much larger world would end up causing a violation of those narrative boundaries we were originally set for ourselves. So reading this, it makes sense. Like, he's stating Valisthea is just one part of this world, so it has a very specific type of culture and people. It's like in, I don't know, if you went to Europe during or went to Africa during the 1840s, you won't find any white people there, or anyone there. You would, anyone of mixed race, you would find mostly people of color, like black people, and that would make sense. So in this context, the way they're conveying it is that you're in one section of the world with one set of people and culture, and when you go to a different section of the world, you're going to find other people and their cultures and their desires. Maybe they are, I don't know, Final Fantasy has bunny people like Fran from Final Fantasy 12, where they're very deeply in tune with nature. They structure their entire homes around trees, and they're much more focused on those types of natural alignment with nature, as opposed to, say, the towns in that sit in that game, or I've played Final Fantasy 12 in a while, but the more modernized towns with lots of technology, like where Vaughn was from, like in the desert, it was very advanced city with large buildings and artificial machinery. So the way he's conveying is that this is one area. Maybe we'll explore other areas, which will give us narrative opportunities to explore and diversify the narrative, showcasing different people that will provide excitement to the player. Another thing that this article just simply, I think, gets wrong is this, that here it is, leaving aside the fact that there were black and brown people in medieval Europe. Yeah, there were, but this isn't Europe. This is Final Fantasy. Like, it's a fantasy world called Valistea. It's not Europe. He just said that it takes inspiration from Europe, like everything that people create. It takes inspiration from anything from the world, like literally, like God of War. God of War, do you really think they went to Valhalla to design Asgard? No. They designed it in like it was Scotland, because Scotland is where, Norse mythology kind of comes from. I could be wrong about that, but it is generally Scotland. And, that's why in God of War, when Kratos goes to a different realm, in this case Midgar, it has different people, different cultures, different structures, everything. So of course they're going to be radically different from one another, just like if Kratos went to Egypt, you would find mostly brown and black people. Like, it's just like common sense. And at the same time, you're taking real world elements and you're trying to incorporate them into a fantasy world. Worse is that you're policing these developers, stating you have to adhere to these types of ideals established within Western media, in Japanese media. Which is ironic, considering that Japanese media, such as manga, anime, and their video games, are generally more popular than Western culture media. Like, just look at how the US comic book industry is failing in comparison to, anime and manga. Not to mention, like, Netflix shows, the ones that do very well are from Korea, because they make some really damn good shows. And yeah, like, okay, let's go into the next one. Let's deconstruct this. This justification rings hollow that several locations take inspiration from North Africa and Middle East. Yeah, because they take inspiration from real world things in order to incorporate them into the games. Just like in The Legend of Zelda, the Granados are taken from Middle Eastern culture. With the towns, for example, riffed on Islamic architecture, traditions, and attire, but are predominantly or exclusively populated by Anglophone white people. Again, as far as I know, Final Fantasy, I never played Final Fantasy 14, so maybe they do incorporate race in that type of way based on your skin color. But in every Final Fantasy game I played to, they incorporate the race based on where you're born. Like, for example, in Final Fantasy 9, it was whether you were from Alexandria, Limbrom, like whatever city you were born into, that's kind of where they link you to. Like in Final Fantasy 7, you were born in Midgard, you were born in Nibelheim. Like, it was more of where you were born instead of like, you were born in Wutai. Like, even though Cloud and Yuffie both have similar skin tones, they took into comparison of where they were born. Cloud was born in Nibelheim, Yuffie was born in Wutai, and that's what they associate their race with. I could be wrong about that, but based on every Final Fantasy game I've played, or at least from memory, that's how they incorporate the characters. Where you were born is what race you are, not your skin color. But yeah, like, they're going to take inspiration from these types of cultures in order to build their architecture to showcase different variety of cultures. Like, I am Middle Eastern. Like, my dad's from Pakistan, my mom's from Guyana. I don't care. Like, I just want the game to be good. Like, if they want to take inspiration from my people to build a better game, go for it. Yeah. I find the deletion of these people of color from these spaces more sinister than the racial stereotypes of older Final Fantasy games. Look, every game, every piece of medium has racial stereotypes. It is what it is. As for deletion, they didn't delete anything. In this world, this is just how it is. They didn't put black and brown people into this world and then click delete. They're not in this world. In Valistea, they don't exist in this world. They exist in a different region of the world. That's literally what Yoshi P said here. Valistea was never going to be realistically be diverse as, say, modern day Earth or even Final Fantasy XIV, he said, as if we were being asked to incorporate every race on the planet. That's not what he said. He said ultimately we felt that while incorporating ethnic diversity in Valistea was important, an over-incorporation into the single corner of a much larger world could end up causing violation of those narrative boundaries we originally set for ourselves. Yeah, he's literally saying, like, this is one sector of the world. It just seems like you just cherry-picked information instead of actually listening to what the guy said. In this world, in this specific part of the world, in Valistea, there are just these types of people. Like in another piece of the world, there could be people who are entirely short, or very tall, or bunny people, like I said, or, they could be blue, or green, or orange, or rainbow. Or heck, they can even be sentient monsters. Like in Final Fantasy VIII, there was an entire race of yellow sumo-looking tentacle people. So, it just seems like this person cherry-picked a lot of information and then decided to try and create this unnecessary problem that doesn't have any foundation to it. Because the way I'm seeing this is that you're taking this and you're trying to police Square Enix of how they should develop their game, despite the fact that most people like myself who just want to play the game don't care because, again, Yoshi P provided a very valid answer to why there aren't people of different skin colors or, stuff like that in Valistea. They're keeping their options open for when they want to explore other worlds. Because, and I know I'm going a bit of a tangent here, to me that opens a very cool idea of, like, allowing things to cook. So later on, you can develop the world even further, because that's something that a lot of other Final Fantasy games run into that's problematic, because you can explore the entire world of Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, 9, 10, and because you can explore the entire world, there's very little room open to enter into other realms of the game. Like in Final Fantasy X-2, one of the biggest issues I had was the fact there just happened to be a mega weapon underneath Spira that could kill Sin. Why the fuck didn't anyone discover this thing? Like, you would assume that someone would have found it eventually, but it's just there. And with this opportunity, they can literally go in any parts of the world and say, oh yeah, there was this type of race of people who were incredibly dominant or technologically advanced, and you just weren't aware of them, and because of that, they can easily take you over if they wanted to. To me, that just opens a lot cooler opportunities to tell a wider world. And you're just saying, like, hey, like, I don't know, you can call this the R word. I don't know if I could say that on YouTube. I have to pick my words very carefully because they're terminating channels and demonetizing channels left and right for the most basic of things. But regardless, the way I read this art, like, the rest of the review is fine. They kind of go into detail about the combat and a lot of other issues that people had with the game, such as the poor side quest and the lack of, like, very meaningful side content. That's basically the major issue that a lot of people are having it. But this right here, this paragraph just really rubbed me the wrong way, because it just seems that people in the West are trying to police other people, like we're kind of negatively notorious for. I've been to Spain and Italy, and yeah, they kind of see us as America as the way of trying to police everyone to think their way or else, and this comes off as that. Like, how dare you not adhere to our principles here, despite Japan being like, hey, we just want to make good entertainment, and that's what they're focusing on. I don't know, I just felt like this entire paragraph could have been omitted, and nothing would have been lost from it. In fact, the review is fine. It's just this one paragraph that I think that is way, way too off the handle. But tell me what you think in the comments below, and that's it from me.